What's up, y'all? You're listening to the Eagles post-game recap. I'm Alex Miller, joined always by the colorful Robert Cessna. We're here in Starkville. A&M has survived a trip to Davis-Wade Stadium with a 34-24 win over the Bulldogs. Cease, look, we know Mississippi State's in the doghouse of the conference standings this year, but this is a place that has not been friendly to the Aggies. It wasn't pretty, but the bottom line is A&M got the win.
Yeah, Mississippi State, I give them a lot of credit. They came out, I thought they punched A&M by scoring in that first drive. I made a lot of big plays, and they really were in the game all the way, really, because of that. And A&M making mistakes. But A&M didn't make that big mistake to really go ahead and cost them the game. When it's all said and done, their defense showed up when they had to. The offense did what they had to get the game out, and they put it in the win column. Bottom line is, you look around college football every week, A&M now has won 6 in a row. Not a lot of people can say that.
Yeah, A&M 6-1. They're 4-0 in the SEC for just the second time in 13 seasons. Look, A&M's entering some kind of uncharted waters, per se, as they're halfway through the league slate. It's the first time they've won back-to-back road games in the SEC since 2020, and wins in Starkville are typically a good omen of things to come for the Aggies historically. So, Cease, we were talking on the way back up, teams that compete for championships don't always have just a steamroll through the schedule. Typically, teams can have to, win some close, ugly games. Think about Alabama last year that made the playoff. They had to beat A&M that wasn't very good. They had to get 4th and 31 against Auburn on the road. What'd you think of the way that A&M was able to maybe weather some of the ebbs and flows when things could have gone wrong? Maybe teams of A&M's past would have let that swing things the other way.
But they've had some experience doing it this year. The Bowling Green game was ugly at times. The Arkansas game was ugly at times. So they've had some experience winning those type of games. And you can talk about championships. I'm not going to say this is ready to be a championship team, nor do I think anybody else will. But just to get to 10-2, get to 9-3, sometimes you have to win 1 or 2 games like that, because these are the kind of games, as you mentioned, these are the kind of losses that have led to 8-5 seasons. Forget about the 10-2s and 11-1s. Think about the 8-5s and 7-6s that A&M's had because they lose at Mississippi State. You could say one time they came in like 6-0, they finished 8-5 that year. I mean, it's like these are the kind of losses that lead to another loss. But what we're seeing is A&M's winning games that's leading to another win. So I give their defense credit because their defense woke up. Their defense didn't show up at Starkville. They're back there in Monroe somewhere. They might not even been in the state of Mississippi. The offense, I thought the offense would play better because this is a bad Mississippi State team. And at times when A&M called the right plays, blocked the right deals, they won, but they lost another lineman today. They had to play the second half without a lineman. So you can't really rip the off. And you got to remember also about Wegman. He threw about 5 bad balls today. But this is only his 3rd quality start of the year. I didn't count McNeese State. So, he's, once again, he missed 3 games. And I'm saying, man, he looked a little rusty, which I thought he would last week, and he didn't. But to answer your question is, they did what they had to win by 10. When it was all said and done, Mississippi State couldn't make a play. Bowling Green was in a position where if they made a play, they could have won. Maybe Arkansas makes a right play, they win. By the time the 4th quarter was around, A&M had this game under control, even with them giving them a 12-yard field to make it a 1-score game. A&M was able to recover. So you can say a lot of bad things, but once again, look around college football. There's a lot of teams, fans not feeling too well today.
Yeah, just kind of dissecting a little bit. You mentioned Connor Wegman's performance, 15 of 25. I think he had 217 yards. We don't have stats in front of us. He had 2 interceptions and a touchdown. Elko said after the game, he just felt like the offense couldn't get into a rhythm. That was pretty obvious if you watched the game. He just felt like they were just pressing, pressing in the run game to just get something going, pressing in the passing game. And, I think that was very evident for anyone who watched A&M play. And then on defense, obviously Mississippi State had their way in the first half. I mean, they were outgaining A&M by like 80 yards at halftime. They ended up outgaining A&M by I think maybe 15 or 20 yards when it was all said and done. But Torian York said, hey, we were really honest at halftime just about how A&M was playing, and they obviously got something turned around. It seemed like Van Buren was pressured a lot more in the second half, which I think is what we saw in the Arkansas game. A&M really started getting after Taylon Green, and look, I think the Van Buren kid is going to be pretty good in the next 2-3 years, but let's not forget, he's just a true freshman. These wounds will help him in the long run, but today it was too much for him to overcome.
Here's the deal: is I think you touched on something. Remember, A&M was off for weeks. They've had 2 weeks to think about how good they are. Right now, they're number 14 in the country. They might move up to maybe 13, 12, who knows? But in reality, let's be honest, I don't think they are the 12th or 13th ranked team in the nation. They haven't proven that to me yet. They haven't played that complete game, except for Missouri. And we saw Missouri barely won today. But my point being is they're going to have to play better. If they want to win at South Carolina, if they want to win next week at LSU, they're going to have to play better than this. Now, they'll be at home, and sometimes you don't have to play better than your opponent. I mean, let's make it, it's pretty easy. You know, I've been known to gamble. I win a lot of times with 12 when the dealer busts. I've lost a lot of times with 20. You just got to win. And right now, A&M's winning. So they're going to be better next week than they were this week. And if they wouldn't have been better, won the Missouri game, they probably don't win this game. They find a way to lose this game, possibly coming out in the second half. So once again, nothing beats winning.
There's still a lot of football to be played today, but if the results hold, LSU is beating Arkansas by 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Georgia had a pretty commanding lead over Texas down in Austin. It's kind of crazy to say this, but if the results hold, A&M and LSU are going to be playing for sole possession of first place next week at Kyle Field, which I would presume will be the night game on ABC.
You talk about taking care of your business, right? If A&M takes care of business, that can happen. What we're talking about, Texas is not taking care of business. And once again, is if you don't take care of business, that's what happens. And so you lose those games. And once again, is if A&M takes care of business, they could be the unbeaten team in conference play when the Lone Star Showdown rolls around. Now they got to go to South Carolina. They got to win Auburn.
And South Carolina looked pretty good
South
today.
Carolina looked pretty good today.
Now Oklahoma also looks pretty bad.
Oklahoma looks pretty bad. So all we can do is talk about today is, A&M had a lot of warts, but guess what? They're smiling and their teeth are really, really bright right now.
Well, they may not be smiling so much when if they read your grades. Cease, I know you're not even close to starting on that yet, but just initial impression on what you might grade A&M's overall performance.
Once again, you got to get a lot of C's, a lot of B's, maybe a D here and there. You got to remember, they'd lost 4 of their last 5 trips down here. I know this is a bad Mississippi State team, but they played better than what they were, and A&M's part of the problem. So I think A&M, you could see Mike Elka come off at halftime. He wasn't too happy. There was a reason for that because they weren't playing up to their capabilities. And so a lot of times I feel, hey, I was a C student. Guess what? You don't get it done when you're a C student. They were a C a lot of times when you all said and done a lot of ways. So I think there'll be a lot of C's, and it's not for Cessna. It's for unsatisfactory.
Well, hey, that's going to do it for us here in Starkville. Be sure to check theeagle.com for all of our coverage on A&M's win over Mississippi State. We'll see you next week previewing A&M's big showdown against LSU.